My boss erased me from every meeting that mattered. He deleted my calendar invites, removed his own approvals from email threads, planted a fake HR complaint in my file. Then he looked me in the eye and said, "There are some readiness concerns, Morgan. Nothing formal." I stood there watching my promotion die. 4 months of surgical sabotage, all legal, all hidden, all using the company's own systems. That was September. But here's what Derek didn't know. I'm a risk and controls manager. I find gaps in systems for a living, and he'd just left a trail in every log, every timestamp, every deleted invite. 3 months later, I watched him sign a document certifying a lie in front of legal, HR, and compliance. Attestation fraud, his signature, my evidence. He was gone by Friday. My promotion was reinstated by Monday. This is how you win when someone weaponizes corporate process against you. Not with confrontation, with documentation. My name is Morgan Vale. I'm a senior program manager in risk and controls at one of the largest fintech companies in the country. My job is finding gaps in systems, compliance failures, process vulnerabilities, control breakdowns. I'm good at it. Methodical, precise. The kind of person who reads audit logs for fun. Which is why it's almost funny that I didn't see my own manager systematically destroying my career until it was almost too late. September, late afternoon, Derek's office. I'd been with the company for 4 years, led 3 major risk implementations. My performance reviews were spotless. The promotion to director was supposed to be automatic, mechanical even. Derek had designed the rubric himself. I'd hit every single metric. So when he leaned back in his chair and said, "We're pausing your promotion cycle," my brain couldn't process it. Not denied, paused. "There are some readiness concerns," he continued. Voice calm, almost sympathetic. "Nothing formal, just calibration." Calibration, that word does heavy lifting in corporate America. It sounds objective, data-driven, fair. It's none of those things. What specifically needs to be calibrated? I asked. Stakeholder feedback, executive visibility, the usual. Can you send me the written criteria? Of course, I'll get that over to you. He never did. That's when I started paying attention to the details. And in my line of work, details are everything. The invitations started disappearing in October. Not obviously, not all at once, just strategically. A leadership sync I'd attended for 6 months suddenly marked optional for me. Then the time changed. Then the room moved to executive floor 9, a floor my badge didn't access. A client escalation review? My name was on the original invite. Then I got an update with my name removed. When I asked Derek about it, he said, "We're streamlining attendees." A promotion calibration committee meeting? Never received an invite. Only found out it happened when a colleague mentioned it. "Wait, you weren't there?" they asked. "I wasn't invited." Huh. "I thought you declined." That phrase kept appearing. "I thought you declined." Nobody was lying. They genuinely believed I'd chosen not to participate. Because that's what the calendar showed. And in modern corporate warfare, the calendar is reality. Then the emails started vanishing. Early November, I was presenting a compliance framework to the risk committee. Derek interrupted. "I'm not sure Morgan got proper approval for that approach." "You emailed me approval," I said. October 14th. "I don't recall that." "I can pull the thread." "Please do." I opened my sent folder, found the original message, clicked the thread. His reply was gone. Not in trash, not archived, just gone. As if it never existed. But I'm careful. Obsessively careful. The forwarded copy I'd sent to legal still contained Derek's reply in the quoted text. And the message headers showed artifacts. A reply to field, a message ID, a timestamp. Someone had used a mailbox rule to retroactively delete Derek's response from the visible thread. Probably a retention policy exception buried in his settings. I didn't confront him. I just started exporting everything. The HR note appeared in mid-November. I only learned about it because a colleague in People Ops mentioned it during a hallway conversation. "Hey, I saw there was a behavioral concern flagged in your file. Everything okay?" I stopped walking. "What concern?" She looked uncomfortable. "I probably wasn't supposed to mention it. It's confidential. If it's in my file, I need to know about it." Talk to your HRBP. I scheduled a meeting that afternoon. I understand there's a note in my file, I said. Tone neutral, professional. Can you walk me through it? The HR business partner hesitated. It's recent, nothing formal, just documentation. What's the observation? Concerns about collaboration and responsiveness. From whom? That's confidential. When was this documented? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, right after I'd started asking about the missing meeting invites. Can I see the supporting documentation? There isn't any. It's a manager observation. A note, without evidence, entered into my permanent file, timed perfectly to justify a frozen promotion. This wasn't improvisation. This was architecture. Derek loved process, not in a bureaucratic way, in a strategic way. He understood that modern corporate governance is a weapon if you know how to wield it. He chaired the promotion calibration committee. He wrote the readiness assessment policy. He designed the sign-off matrix. Everything had a framework, a required attestation, a documented trail. And that's where I saw his mistake. He'd built a system so tight, so precise, so defensible, that it couldn't tolerate deviation. Every decision required documentation. Every exception needed justification. Every certification had to be accurate, which meant every lie left a permanent scar. I pulled the promotion governance policy, read it line by line. Promotion decisions must be supported by documented evidence, stakeholder input, and manager certification of candidate participation in required calibration activities. Manager certification. That phrase sat in my mind like a loaded gun. I started building my own audit trail. Nothing dramatic, just methodical documentation. I exported my Outlook calendar for the past 6 months. Every meeting, every invite, every organizer change. I submitted a help desk ticket requesting my badge access log, framed it as a personal security review. I pulled document version history from our collaboration platform. I cross-referenced meeting room reservation logs with invites I'd received. The gaps became obvious. October 12th. Leadership sync room changed from conference 4B to executive floor 9. I never received the update. My badge doesn't access executive 9. October 18th. Calibration committee invite created at 2:14 p.m. with me listed as required. Deleted at 3:01 p.m. No revised invite sent. November 2nd. Risk escalation review. Original invite sent to me at 9:14 a.m. Revised invite at 9:31 a.m. with my name removed. Organizer, Derek Klein. November 8th. My access to the shared promotion folder was revoked. Reinstated 3 days later after I inquired. No explanation provided. Corruption isn't loud. It's a series of small surgical edits. I needed witnesses, but I didn't need accusations. I reached out to 2 colleagues who'd been in meetings I was excluded from. Kept it casual. Quick question. Was I supposed to be in the October escalation review? I thought you were. Then I figured you declined. Did you see the original invite? Maybe. I delete those pretty fast. No worries, just checking. They didn't realize what they'd confirmed. The invites had existed, then been altered. Another colleague mentioned the calibration meeting. I assumed you'd already gone through yours, she said. Derek mentioned your session was moved to a different week. Did he say when? No, just that it was handled. Handled. I didn't ask them to accuse Derek. I didn't need them to take sides. I just needed fragments, breadcrumbs, small inconsistencies I could match against the audit logs. Because fear silences people. But evidence doesn't require courage. The trap had to be elegant. If I accused Derek directly, it would become a credibility battle. My word against a director's. Political. Messy. Winnable for him. But if I could force him to certify his version of events under the promotion governance framework, the same framework he'd built, then his lie would become institutional fraud. The policy required manager certification for promotion readiness. Certification meant signing an attestation that the candidate had participated in all required activities. I just had to request the formal documentation. I sent an email to Derek copying HR and the VP. Per Promotion Governance Policy Section 3.4, I'm requesting formal readiness certification and supporting documentation for my paused promotion cycle. Please include confirmation of my participation in required calibration activities and any performance concerns referenced in the delay. Professional, policy compliant, impossible to refuse. Derek replied within an hour. Happy to provide. Let's schedule a prep session to finalize the packet. He thought I was asking for help. I was building a legal record. The prep session happened on a Thursday afternoon. Glass-walled conference room. Rain streaking the windows. Derek, the VP, an HRBP, and me. Derek walked through the promotion packet methodically. Performance summary, stakeholder feedback, readiness assessment. Then he reached the certification page. This section confirms your participation in the calibration process, he said. Panel review, stakeholder sessions, committee discussion. He slid the page toward me. Just need to confirm you were present for the final panel. I didn't move. The VP looked at me. Morgan? Derek filled the silence smoothly. They were invited. They just didn't show. There it was. The lie, clear, direct, confident. He picked up his pen and signed the manager certification line, dated it. Then he referenced the HR note. There were some responsiveness concerns earlier in the cycle, which is why we paused. But those appear resolved now. The HRBP made notes. I stayed silent. Let him finish. Then I spoke. I'd like to request a legal hold on all related calendar invites, email threads, and access logs for the past 90 days. The room went still. That's a significant request, the VP said carefully. It's within policy, I replied. Section 4(7) of the Promotion Governance Framework allows any party to request log preservation if there's a material discrepancy in the documented record. Derek's pen stopped moving. His face didn't change. But I saw it, the microsecond where he realized what I'd just done. The legal hold triggered automatically. IT froze the logs. Compliance opened a procedural review, not an investigation, just documentation validation. No accusations, no drama. Just a narrow request to verify that calendar invites, email records, and badge access matched the manager's signed certification. Within 48 hours, the audit results arrived. October 12th, meeting room changed after distribution. Morganvale not included in update. Badge access confirms no entry to Executive 9. October 18th, calibration invite created with Morganvale as required attendee. Invite deleted 47 minutes later by Derek Klein. No revised invite issued. November 2nd, email thread shows reply from Derek Klein to Morganvale dated October 14th. Reply removed via mailbox rule on November 1st, one day before VP meeting where Derek stated no approval was given. November 8th, HR case note created without required supporting documentation. Policy mandates evidence attachments for behavioral concerns. None present. The systems didn't interpret, they just reported facts. The VP called a closed-door meeting. Derek, HR leadership, legal, and compliance. I wasn't invited, but I knew what they were reviewing. Derek had certified under policy that I'd been invited and failed to participate. The logs proved I was never invited, or was uninvited after distribution. He'd claimed I was unresponsive. The log showed he'd deleted his own approval email. He'd referenced an HR concern to justify the delay. The system showed it was entered without supporting documentation, violating HR case management policy. Every element of his narrative collapsed under audit. Not because I accused him, because the infrastructure he'd built to protect himself couldn't lie. 2 days later, I received an email from the VP. Your promotion is reinstated, effective immediately. We're implementing additional controls around calendar transparency and HR documentation requirements. Corrections have been made to your file. Derek's name was absent. He was gone by Friday. I walked into my new office on Monday morning. Same building, same floor, different title. No celebration, no fanfare. Just the quiet beep of a badge reader turning green. Derek didn't fight the termination. He couldn't. The attestation fraud was documented. Fighting it would have required admitting he manipulated the record, which would have triggered worse legal consequences. So he left quietly. With a severance package and an NDA, the company tightened controls, Calendar changes now generate audit notifications. HR case notes require evidence attachments. Manager certifications undergo secondary review. Not because they wanted reform, because the liability exposure was too high. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need an apology. I just needed the record corrected, because vindication isn't about suffering. It's about restoring reality. In a world where power rewrites the truth, sometimes the most radical act is proving what actually happened. I learned something during those 4 months. People who weaponize process always make the same mistake. They assume the system protects them. But systems don't protect anyone. They just remember everything, and memory is the only justice that matters.